Welcome to CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the first anniversary of the attack on Capitol Hill. See how it shows the divisions in America and what could be ahead. A remarkable discovery in Israel, an archaeological find that gives us new insight on what life was like in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. Plus, Chile elects Marxist Gabriel Boric to become president of the country. Now it may possibly become a Marxist government against the interests of the United States.
It is a complete and fundamental transformation and a deep and, I think, aggressive hostility towards the United States.
Then later.
Wait a minute. Can you repeat that? I had a marshmallow in my ear.
We take a look at the Disney film Ice Age, along with other stories making headlines this week in the world of uplifting entertainment. All these stories and more are coming up now.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with the one-year anniversary of the day angry protesters stormed the U.S. Capitol in Washington. There have been a number of investigations, security enhancements, and even prison for some of those involved. The country remains divided as ever. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke explains why some fear the divisions pose a risk to the future of our country.
On January 6, 2021, the world saw America's deep division on full display. In the aftermath of the Capitol riot, there was hope that unity would be restored. By many accounts, however, that hasn't been the case.
If you look at other incidents, 9/11, school shootings, we've been brought together as Americans. This is the first incident that hasn't happened.
Donnell Harvin served as D.C.'s chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence. That helped him see a dangerous increase in online chatter from armed militias and known radical groups prior to the events of January 6th. His office helping to prepare the local response.
I will go to my grave knowing that had it not been for the local authorities, that the Capitol would have fallen.
While security breakdowns on the federal level remain under investigation, Harvin says it's important that looking back doesn't distract from moving forward.
The radical elements that really want to tear apart this country are still there.
Security experts like Harvin worry that our divisive political environment will continue to provide a foothold for those radical elements.
The violence that we experienced on January 6th is decentralized and will go back to the states. And we see evidence of that already with election officials being threatened, public health officials being threatened, school officials being threatened.
Harvin says this leads him to believe that instead of targeting the nation's capital, the next threat will be directed at the state and local level.
Just from a Homeland Security and intelligence analysis standpoint, if those individuals and like-minded individuals who sought to stop the certification of the vote on the very, very last day they could, failed on January 6th. Indications are that they'll go further up in the voting cycle and try to stop people from actually casting their votes or stop the votes from being counted and certified at the state level.
Looking ahead, Harvin says it's imperative that we protect election officials while securing state houses and voting sites. Ultimately, though, he believes restoring national unity is the most important way to ensure the survival of American democracy. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Turning now to COVID-19, hospitals across the United States are being hit by the Omicron variant in a different way from earlier COVID-19 surges. Hospitals say the difference is so many healthcare workers are getting sick, leading to staff shortages. But at the same time, most patients aren't as sick as those who came in during the last surge. Intensive care units aren't as full and fewer ventilators are needed. Chicago school leaders canceled classes today for the second straight day after the teachers union refused to return to the classroom, citing a lack of testing. Mayor Lori Lightfoot accused the union of holding education hostage.
We are going to fight to get our kids back in-person learning.
The Centers for Disease Control gave the go-ahead last night for children as young as 12 to get a booster shot as a surge of new cases has disrupted schools nationwide. An unidentified person paid a ransom to release the 15 missionaries who were still being held by a gang in Haiti. The payment was made under an agreement that was supposed to lead to the release of all of the remaining captives, but the gang reneged on the pledge to set a lot of them free. Instead, they just let 3 of them go. That account has been confirmed by the missionaries' organization, Christian Aid Ministries in Ohio. The person who made the ransom payment was not affiliated with the group. The remaining missionaries have said they later made a dramatic escape. A majority of Americans are not going along with the idea that there are multiple genders. That is according to a Rasmussen survey. 75% of adults believe there are only 2 genders, with 63% saying they strongly agree. Only 18% disagreed. 2/3 of those surveyed all oppose allowing schools to counsel children on gender or sexual identity without parental knowledge or consent. I want to turn overseas now to Israel, where an 11-year-old girl recently made a significant archaeological find. The discovery sheds new light on what life was like in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us this story.
In the Emek Zurim Park, visitors can sift through debris from the ongoing excavation in the city of David. That's where Liel Krudakop found a rare silver coin from the time of the Second Temple.
It feels something not normal. And go to their archaeological was there, and he cleaned it a little bit, and then he told me and for my family that's a silver coin.
At first, Liel's father thought they should throw it away.
Actually, it didn't look like a coin, so I was thinking to myself, this is some kind of stone, and actually I told to the girls put it in the garbage can. But they insisted that this is a coin, and they took the coin to the archaeologist that was on the site, and he confirmed that this is indeed a coin.
I was very excited, and it's like some happy feel because somebody touched it before 2,000 years, and right now I'm touched.
This is a very rare find. Together with this silver coin, we know from the archaeological documentation only 30 other silver coins from the rebellion.
The coin has 2 Hebrew inscriptions.
We can see here the words in ancient Hebrew, Shekel Israel, and a second line with 2 Hebrew letters, Shin Bet, which means the second year of the rebellion against the Romans. 67-8 AD. On the other side of the coin, we have another inscription in ancient Hebrew, which says, LeYerushalayim HaKdosha, to Holy Jerusalem.
Archaeologists believe the high priest in the temple wanted the coin to help pay for the revolt against the Romans.
Coins were minted in order to emphasize independence of certain communities. So the Jews that rebelled against the Romans wanted to emphasize that they are independent.
The Hebrew wording on the coin harkens back to the First Temple for a reason.
To the time of King David and his son King Solomon. The Jews wanted to emphasize their connection to the great kingdom of Israel led by King David. They missed it. They wanted their kingdom to be as large as King David's kingdom.
The coin came from a layer of debris dating to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD.
I'm standing on the remains of the ancient pilgrimage road that led Jews from all over the world to the temple itself. When the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the street itself, all the structures that stood on both sides of this street collapsed into one pile.
To Levy, the discovery is like traveling back in time.
To hold this silver coin is like going back 2,000 years ago and actually touching the daily life of the people that lived in Jerusalem.
Liel's mother sees it as more proof of Jewish life in Jerusalem.
It tells a lot about the history, about the people that lived here, about everything, about the history of this place, of Jerusalem, and the meaning of this place to us, to the Israelis, to the Jewish people. So yes, it means a lot.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, Chile may be on the verge of opposing the interests of the United States as Marxist Gabriel Boric soon becomes the president of that country. Center for Security Policy President Frank Gaffney shares more coming up next. Welcome back. While people around the world prepared for Christmas, voters in Chile elected a new president, 35-year-old Marxist Gabriel Boric. He becomes the youngest president in the world. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Center for Security Policy President Frank Gaffney predicts Chile may soon join a growing number of Marxist governments in Latin America, opposing the interests of the United States. Gaffney reveals who he believes is behind the effort.
But they'll be doing it in conjunction with an organization called the Forum of Sao Paulo, which is kind of a communist international of our time, dominated by the Chinese communists, further enabled and supported by some of its allies, notably Russia and Iran. And the agenda of this Forum of Sao Paulo is very straightforward. It is a complete and fundamental transformation, as Barack Obama likes to say, of this hemisphere, and a deep and, I think, aggressive hostility towards the United States. I think you're going to see drug trafficking greatly intensified. I think you're going to see destabilization of the hemisphere to the benefit of the Communist Chinese and their friends. And not least, you're going to see a further uptick of the kind of surging flow of illegal immigration into this country, all of which is going to be very problematic for us, as I say, as well as the rest of the world.
We know he was an activist who 10 years ago led student takeovers of college campuses, demanding free tuition. Many of the policies he's advocating sound like Bernie Sanders. So what else can you tell us about Boric? Well,
I think he is a young man on the make. He has definitely got credentials as a radical communist organizer, and I feel quite certain that in power in Chile, with the involvement of the Chinese Communist Party and probably others, again, hostile to us, that he will take that country in the direction that Allende, the former communist president, was trying to take it until, fortunately, he was stopped by Pinochet with our help.
Boric received more votes than any presidential candidate in Chilean history. And you mentioned the days of Salvador Allende. Well, this time it's the Chinese influence, not the USSR or Cuba. So how did that happen?
Well, I think one can't rule out the possibility that there was some fraud that was at work, but I think that they were successful, the communists, in characterizing the opposition as a Pinochetist type of right-wing extremist. I don't think he was that, but that's nonetheless the message that was conveyed. And as a result of that message being conveyed, I think you saw large numbers of people opting for free stuff, as is the great temptation of the communists.
Earlier, I mentioned a comment he made about Israel during a TV news interview during the campaign, and he called the country a, quote, murderous and genocidal state. Does that make Boric an anti-Semite?
Well, it makes him an anti-Zionist. I think that's fair. And usually that is a sort of false flag for anti-Semitism as well. I would hope that he would not act on such sentiments, but again, it is part and parcel of, on the one hand, the atheism of the communists, and on the other, the native hostility to Israel and Jews more generally that often is a, very foundational organizing principle of the communists. And so whether he acts on it or not remains to be seen. Whether he is imbued with some of those tendencies, I'd be surprised if he were not.
Finally, Frank, Boric takes office in March. So how should the United States respond?
I believe that we need what we've called a Monroe Initiative, hearkening back to the Monroe Doctrine of James Monroe, one of our founders, who recognized that having hostile powers from outside of our hemisphere colonizing it is not consistent with our interests or that of the hemisphere more generally. So we have a hemispheric security project at the Center for Security Policy, which is working in coalition with others to try to advocate for such a clear-eyed stance that would most immediately align ourselves with and try to help the forces of freedom in Colombia and Brazil, the two countries that are next in line, as I said, for a communist assault, but also to try to work with friends and allies. But we need to be acting on the principle that what happens in our hemisphere is of vital interest to our country. It's not just our backyard, I would argue it's our front yard. And to the extent that it is occupied territory in the hands of enemies of this nation, whether they're within the hemisphere or outside working inside it now, is very detrimental to the national security interests, to the well-being of the American people, and ultimately their safety.
For more on this story and other trends in the news, be sure to watch The Global Lane this evening at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can find it on the CBN News channel. You can also download it on the CBN News app. Still ahead, we're going to take a look at the top 5 stories making headlines in the world of uplifting entertainment this week. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. A television icon and Christian recording artist is remembered, and Disney releases a new Ice Age after 6 years. All these stories and more are part of this week's countdown of the top 5 stories in the world of uplifting entertainment. Take a look.
At number 5. Say once again, we love you.
Saturday Night Live honored the late Betty White over the weekend with an encore airing of her 2010 turn as the show's oldest ever guest host.
When I first heard about the campaign to get me to host Saturday Night Live, I didn't know what Facebook was. And now that I do know what it is, I have to say, it sounds like a huge waste of time.
The news came New Year's Eve. Beloved entertainer Betty White died.
The older you get, the better you get, unless you're a banana.
Off-screen, White was a lifelong animal lover who said her parents instilled in her a compassion for all creatures, great and small. Betty White was 99 years old and only weeks away from turning 100.
I'm not doing it for myself, you understand, but for those ladies out there who need me.
At number 4, the end of an era.
I'm going to need my family to be black. Not black-ish, but black.
It's time to start saying goodbye to Blackish, the critically acclaimed sitcom's final season.
The 8th and final season of the popular series begins this week.
And show star Marsai Martin, who started on the series when she was just 9, she's 17 now, tells us making this final season was bittersweet.
It was lots of tears, and it was lots of joy as well. I mean, I feel like it was very lighthearted. And because, you know, we are all really proud of what we have made.
The season premiere goes big with former First Lady Michelle Obama as a special guest star.
At number 3.
The Lost World. The world's most dangerous place.
Wait a minute. Can you repeat that? I had a marshmallow in my ear.
It's a Studio 5 first look at Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, set to hit Disney Plus later this month. And it comes after a 6-year gap in the franchise.
Crash and Eddie, we're back to the Lost World.
And I thought I made bad choices.
Hello, boys. Buck Wild at your service.
Our hero!
At number 2. Fans, friends, and fellow musicians mourn the death of Big Daddy Weave's Jay Weaver. He died Sunday from complications of COVID-19. Still remembered for his bass guitar and amazing vocals. He was 42. At number 1.
She's probably going to that new health club down on 108.
Comedian and actor Chris Tucker.
And I got Fridays, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I know this is going to bring me a bigger audience, then I can show another side of me.
Now making headlines for turning down millions to do a sequel for that popular Friday franchise.
One of the reasons why I didn't do the second one, because of the weed. Because I said, man, that movie became a phenomenon. I don't want everybody smoking weed. And I never really told people this, because I kind of forgot about it.
Another reason? Franchise creator Ice Cube tweeted, "We were ready to pay Chris Tucker $10 to $12 million to do next Friday, but he turned us down for religious reasons."
You got to be careful. You got to be your own man. You got to be strong, and you got to say no a lot, you know, because that's going to keep you who you are. Even if you make some mistakes, at least you know you're on the right, you know, you're saying no because you're trying to stay where you're at. So I think it's good to stand strong.
Coming up, this may seem far-fetched, but a dog alerts and leads troopers to his owners who were in distress. See how he did it when we come back. A truly unbelievable and inspiring story. New Hampshire police say they were earlier this week chasing down a German Shepherd. His name is Tinsley, and they were chasing him along a bridge on Interstate 89. In the beginning, they believed the dog was lost, but they soon realized he was leading them somewhere. The dog led them to a rollover crash where Tinsley's owners had been thrown from a truck and seriously hurt. 2 people were treated for injuries. Troopers say they were almost in disbelief. Amazing. Gotta love him. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I want to leave you with this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for opening my eyes to see another day and another year. Now, help me to see why. With that prayer, I encourage you to make this a thankful Thursday, and remember, gratitude always makes room for more blessings. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly hope you'll join us right here again next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.